Jimmy Kimmel live with him? Like, Jimmy Kimmel is a talented guy, and I don't think he's like an evil person or something, but he's made this deal where he just serves power and attacks anybody who challenges power. Like, how can, honestly, how can he look in the mirror and say, I'm doing something honorable? Like, how can he live with himself? How can his wife sleep with him?
Well, it'd be...
I mean
Yes, hypocrisy is alive and well amongst these sanctimonious leftists. From Kimmel to De Niro to Stephanopoulos, they want you to believe they're better than you, more virtuous, more decent. But we all know the truth. They lie.
What happens when two of the most polarizing voices in modern media, Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, intentionally avoid direct confrontation, yet unintentionally combine their forces in a powerful, undeniable way? The result, as many are now saying, was an absolute demolition. Not in a head-to-head debate or a fiery social media brawl, but in a silent, slow-motion unraveling of one of late-night television's biggest and most recognized names, Jimmy Kimmel. 1 minute he was cracking jokes, basking in the spotlight, a seemingly invincible figure in the entertainment landscape. The next, his entire public persona seemed to be dodging an invisible yet devastating verbal napalm, launched independently by two professional eyebrow raisers who barely even mentioned his name directly. It's like watching a high-stakes roast where Jimmy Kimmel didn't even realize he was the main course until the curtains closed, the audience had dispersed, and the lingering smell of scorched reputation hung heavy in the air. You won't believe how this extraordinary scenario played out unless your TV can handle intense secondhand embarrassment. This wasn't just a simple feud or a fleeting rivalry. It was a profound cultural meltdown, far more dramatic and impactful than any reality show reunion could ever hope to be. Buckle up, because this narrative suggests a pivotal, irreversible shift in the very fabric of the media landscape.
You know how much it costs to produce Jimmy Kimmel's show? I guarantee you it's tens and tens of millions. It could be as much as 100 million. I have no idea. You know how much Tucker's video cost? Nothing. You know how much Jimmy Kimmel, how many people he gets tuning in on an average night? Just last week, his average was, in the overall, meaning all viewers, 1.5 million. In the key demo, 236,000. Tucker would have been embarrassed to pull that on any night he was on the Fox News channel. That's what they're getting now. Tucker's numbers were 3 times what Jimmy Kimmel gets. And Tucker's little basement video that he did from clearly like his cabin that he broadcasts out of Maine in literally has 21 million views. Okay, 21 million views. Whereas, as I point out, on ABC, a massive network that comes into your home for free, that you have to make no effort to find, at best, Jimmy Kimmel can get 1.5 million. He needs to have a little self-perspective before going out there and hurling these insults, because he looks a little silly.
You know, the way of treating each other equally is joking about each other indiscriminately. So yeah, I think comedians who, and this is why so much of comedy is not funny today. It's my chief criticism of like late night comedy, which I find unwatchable. I think it's totally unwatchable.
But also contemptible. I mean, they're collaborators.
They're just like the fact checkers, they're guardians of the narrative.
Jimmy Kimmel once embodied the fun, carefree, and relatable spirit of late night. He was the guy who made beer chugging look like a legitimate sport, genuinely excited about pranking celebrities, and possessed a mischievous, lovable charm that resonated with a broad audience. But somewhere along the way, something fundamentally and profoundly shifted, altering his public identity beyond recognition. He famously traded his irreverent class clown routine for what critics describe as a solemn robe and gavel, morphing one from a simple, approachable comedian into a perceived guardian of the narrative, and alarmingly, a staunch servant of power. It's an astonishing transformation, a stark abandonment of his comedic roots, leaving many to wonder how he genuinely looks in the mirror and believes he's doing something honorable, something authentic, rather than simply towing a line. This isn't merely about his evolving political leanings. It's about a perceived betrayal of the comedian's core purpose, to challenge power, to satirize those in charge, not to suck up to them or become their Praetorian guard. He became, for many, a sanctimonious leftist, pushing moral verdicts, like a high school prom king auditioning for a Supreme Court seat, delivering sermons disguised as satire. This deep hypocrisy for his detractors is not only alive and well, but thriving amongst those they label collaborators and fact checkers, individuals who want you to believe they are more virtuous, more decent, when the truth, as these critics argue, is far from it. He's often depicted as effectively pouring hot oil on the peasants from the parapet, metaphorically hurting anyone who dares to challenge the established order, a stark and unsettling contrast to his earlier, universally appealing persona. The question then becomes, can comedy truly thrive when its practitioners abandon humor for ideological purity?
Now, I will tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million, 778,000. I mean, for network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV, you plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than double the numbers of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million averaging, also equally horrible.
Be a comedian and to do that, but his job is to be a comedian. He's supposed to be funny, and comedians are supposed to hold people in positions of power accountable. Yeah,
the people in charge.
Exactly.
He's their Praetorian Guard.
Yeah,
and it's like the self-hatred he must feel, because he wasn't always, that's my point. Yeah. I mean, Colbert has always been a hard partisan, talented guy, but obviously he's not a comedian. But Kimmel was a comedian. Like, how does he, I don't understand.
I don't know
how he can sleep.
He might buy into the narrative to the extent that he thinks it's morally wrong to joke about these certain topics.
But it's not just that, he's like pouring hot oil on the peasants from the parapet. Like, he's hurting anyone who challenges the king. It's crazy.
It is.
The harsh reality of the numbers paints an even more brutal and unforgiving picture, highlighting the vast chasm between traditional network influence and genuine public engagement. Consider the sheer astronomical cost of producing Jimmy Kimmel's show, potentially running into tens of millions, perhaps even a staggering $100 million annually. This is a colossal investment from a major network. Now, compare that immense financial outlay to Tucker Carlson's self-produced online videos. They cost virtually nothing to create, often filmed casually and simply from what appears to be his cabin in Maine. The audience numbers tell an equally damning and revealing story about shifting viewer habits and preferences. Just last week, Jimmy Kimmel's average viewership on ABC was a mere 1.5 million overall, with a paltry 236,000 in the crucial key demographic that advertisers crave. Tucker Carlson, during his Fox News tenure, would have been absolutely mortified by such figures, regularly pulling 3 times Kimmel's current numbers on any given night. But the true sting, the undeniable evidence of a monumental shift, comes from Tucker's recent online venture, a little basement video, raw, unpolished, and without network backing, which astonishingly amassed a staggering 21 million views. Imagine the disconnect. A massive network like ABC, which comes into your home for free, requiring no effort to find, struggles desperately to reach 1.5 million viewers, while a solo online video produced with minimal resources captures 21 million eyeballs globally. The disparity isn't just significant, it's a chasm, a seismic crack in the foundations of traditional media. Even once dominant shows like The Daily Show, a juggernaut under Jon Stewart with over 2 million viewers, now scrapes by with a dismal 366,000, while Seth Meyers pulls in a dreadful 778,000. These are utterly dreadful numbers for network television, especially when cable shows like Greg Gutfeld's, which viewers actually pay for, comfortably command more than double Seth Meyers' audience. This glaring disconnect between traditional media influence and actual public engagement should prompt a moment of serious self-reflection, not just for Kimmel, but for the entire late-night ecosystem, before anyone dares to hurl public insults. The contrast looks utterly silly, making Kimmel appear increasingly out of touch and irrelevant to a significant portion of the viewership, a symbol of a dying era.
He's also pushing U.S. intelligence to find evidence for this theory that the virus was accidentally released from a lab in Wuhan. That's his new angle to feed the wingnuts, to treat this virus like it was a conspiracy of some kind.
It should have never happened. This plague should never have happened. It could have been stopped. But people chose not to stop it.
What people? Tomorrow he'll blame the Spanish flu on Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. Imagine if you're a comedian and all of a sudden your cue card has all kinds of talking points from politicians and foreign governments on it. Don't read it. You degrade yourself and you become complicit in the greatest crime in history.
Tucker Carlson's post-Fox News reemergence wasn't just a career comeback, it was a decisive, hostile takeover of the attention economy. When he abruptly departed cable television, many speculated wildly about his future, with weeping montages on other networks and elaborate conspiracy theories abounding across the internet. But Tucker didn't vanish into obscurity or retreat from the public eye. Instead, he mutated into something entirely new, a compelling blend of a libertarian podcaster and a potent digital flamethrower. He simply set up camp online, turned on the camera, and began monologuing like a contemplative Bond villain with a profound axe to grind against media fluff, late-night pomposity, and the broader, often unquestioned cultural narrative. While he consistently avoided aiming a direct monologue at Kimmel by name, his critiques consistently burned through the entire genre of late-night comedy, implicitly, yet devastatingly, targeting Kimmel's current brand and ethos. Tucker's primary pet peeves: virtue-signaling comedians, elite media moralizers, and smug Hollywood types pretending to be the voice of the common people are precisely what now define Kimmel's public persona. The late-night host who once joyfully joked about drunk celebrities and pranked his own staff now delivers long-winded bits on political ethics, looking every bit the scolding national figure in a tailored suit, often perceived as lecturing his audience. Tucker's resurrection tour wasn't about settling scores with specific individuals. It was about calling out a pervasive cultural archetype, an entire system he believed was rotten. His online videos resonated with millions precisely because they seemed to voice the unspoken thoughts of a large chunk of America, sentiments many felt but were too polite or too scared to articulate in the mainstream. And every single time he passionately railed against the performative righteousness of entertainment, every scathing critique of the guardians of the narrative, viewers instinctively knew exactly who he meant. The shoe for Kimmel fit not just perfectly, but with designer precision, custom made for his new image.
You got the Sunday morning show with Stephanopoulos into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel, and ABC elevating, the blackface lovin' Kimmel. They, at the same time, fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on, The Bachelorette, for saying, gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with it. And all he said was, are we judging her by today's standards, or are we judging her by, old standards, whatever. He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why, because he's not a committed leftist, because he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally, right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past without ever acknowledging it.
Meanwhile, across the vast and expanding digital plains of podcasting, Megyn Kelly was meticulously polishing her sniper scope, not literally, but with equally devastating precision and unwavering focus, after dramatically torching her bridges at both Fox and NBC, like a professional arsonist of media credibility, leaving a trail of smoke and controversy in her wake. Kelly didn't retreat into obscurity or fade from the public eye. Instead, she reinvented herself, emerging as a fearless, unyielding prosecutor of hypocrisy, armed with just a microphone and an unwavering mission to expose what she saw as glaring double standards. Unlike Carlson, who launched broad grenades at an entire genre, Kelly was surgical, precise, her weapon of choice being incisive cultural dissection. And when she laid into Hollywood's performative righteousness and moralizing, she might as well have been sketching a direct, unmistakable caricature of Jimmy Kimmel himself. Take, for instance, her pointed and widely discussed commentary on the 96th Academy Awards, famously hosted by Kimmel. She crowned sanctimonious leftists as the true winners of the night, highlighting Kimmel's repeated hosting appearances before an adoring Hollywood crowd, despite his well-documented past of wearing blackface on numerous occasions. She chillingly contrasted this perceived selective outrage with the fury many of the very same celebrities expressed when she merely stated in 2018 that donning dark makeup to imitate black celebrities wasn't always considered a major offense. For Kelly, this was more than simple annoyance. It was profound offense at the sheer breathtaking self-importance of those who moralize extensively on national television while glaringly ignoring the plank-sized contradictions in their own eyes. She pointed out the shocking double standard. Of ABC firing Chris Harrison from The Bachelor for merely questioning if an old action should be judged by current standards, while simultaneously elevating blackface-loving Kimmel to host one of their biggest shows. If Kimmel's stage was once a mere comedy club, a place for lighthearted fun, it had profoundly transformed into a self-righteous pulpit, a bastion of moral judgment, and Kelly was the astute, unyielding theologian rolling her eyes from the back pew, providing a vital voice for an audience utterly exhausted by unsolicited lectures and ideological purity tests. The truly extraordinary and almost poetic aspect of this perceived destruction is that neither Megyn Kelly nor Tucker Carlson coordinated any of it. There was no shadowy meeting in a cigar smoke-filled room, no clandestine phone calls, no planned tag team. Instead, it was a perfect storm of unfiltered commentary and profound cultural fatigue converging simultaneously, a happenstance of independent critiques hitting the same vulnerable target. Tucker, the human Molotov cocktail in a suit, lobbed his intellectual chaos like he was auditioning for a high-minded version of Jackass, seemingly unaware of anyone else's schedule or agenda, simply focused on his own truth. Simultaneously, Megyn, the high-precision assassin with a podcast mic, calmly lined up her shots like she was critiquing bad wine at Sunday brunch, surgically dissecting hypocrisy. Different methods, perhaps, but an undeniable unified target, Jimmy Kimmel, late-night self-appointed moral compass, now visibly wobbling like a Jenga tower in an earthquake, teetering on the edge of collapse. This wasn't teamwork in the traditional sense. It was a simultaneous, accidental demolition effort, each force unaware of the other's specific maneuvers. Kimmel, bless his heart, likely didn't even realize the roof was leaking or that the structural integrity of his public image was compromised until the entire floor collapsed beneath him. He was merely standing in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught squarely in the crossfire of two independent forces who happened to embody the very resistance to everything he now represented. You don't need teamwork when the building you're targeting is already that fragile, that susceptible to even incidental pressure.
The job description of a comedian is not so different from the job description of a journalist, as traditionally constituted. Tell the truth about the powerful. Comedians are usually a lot smarter, more clever, and incisive than journalists, but that's what they're supposed to be doing. Almost none still do. Adam Carolla is one of the very few remaining comedians in the United States. He's out with a new book called Everything Reminds Me of Something.
The profound impact of this combined, unintentional assault isn't just about two media personalities. It speaks to a deep and undeniable cultural shift in how we consume and perceive entertainment. Late night used to be everyone's living room. A shared, broadly accessible space where hosts like Jay Leno, David Letterman, or Conan O'Brien tossed out zingers that made almost everyone laugh without feeling guilty or alienated. The jokes weren't ideological landmines, they were accessible, unifying, designed for collective enjoyment. Now, it has profoundly transformed into an ideological dodgeball, a fiercely partisan forum where humor is often replaced by thinly veiled political stand-up, and the audience, quietly and gradually, has begun to walk away, seeking refuge elsewhere. Kimmel tragically has become one of the last kids left trying to pretend he's still playing hopscotch on a battlefield. Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly don't just critique this new climate, they embody the very resistance to it, becoming symbols for a growing segment of the population. Tucker taps into the simmering chaos and deep-seated frustrations, mocking mainstream smugness with the fiery energy of someone who's been waiting to say, "I told you so," since birth, resonating with a disaffected viewership. Megyn, on the other hand, represents the controlled burn, meticulously dismantling narratives and exposing contradictions without needing to scream or resort to hyperbole. Both versions, distinct yet complementary, are lighting fires under the padded seats of Hollywood's late-night hierarchy, leading to a quiet, insidious erosion of Kimmel's audience. This subtle shift is noticed in Reddit threads dissecting his transformation from funny to preachy, and in serious think pieces asking whether comedy can truly survive when it forgets its fundamental purpose. The job description of a comedian, much like a journalist as traditionally constituted, is to tell the truth about the powerful, to be incisive and clever. And almost none, they argue, still do it, leaving a void that Carlson and Kelly are eager to fill. What is truly brutal, almost poetic about this narrative is that none of it is the result of direct conflict, a personal vendetta, or a planned attack. Carlson and Kelly weren't responding to Kimmel himself. They were reacting to a pervasive cultural archetype he tragically and publicly embodies. And like all unintended targets, Kimmel can't truly hit back without effectively confirming the accusation. If he jokes about them, it proves he's watching and acknowledging their points, inadvertently giving them more power and credibility. If he pointedly ignores them, the silence becomes deafening, a tacit admission of the uncomfortable validity of their critiques. Either way, for many, the damage is undeniably done, the perception cemented. Kimmel's brand, once synonymous with lovable mischief and relatable humor, now feels more like a guidance counselor trying desperately to be cool, or a lecturer giving a sermon disguised as satire, utterly devoid of genuine comedic punch. The crowd that used to cheer for him, the audience he once captivated, is looking elsewhere, somewhere less preachy, more punchy, more authentic. They're tuning into 40-minute rants in barn studios with taxidermy elk seeking raw, unfiltered perspectives. Or they're seeking ruthless logic that calls out the emperor's new clothes without a spoonful of sanctimony. Kimmel, meanwhile, has been seen waving from a slowly sinking ship, stubbornly adjusting his tie for a dwindling crowd that has already left the building, their attention drawn elsewhere. The torch for many has definitively passed to voices, uninterested in approval from coastal elites or polite chuckles from studio audiences. They want unfiltered substance, a direct challenge to the establishment, or at least someone who isn't pretending comedy needs a moral compass. In the most unintentional, gloriously ironic way possible, Jimmy Kimmel was, for many, destroyed. Not with confrontation or name-calling, but with a profound, unsettling loss of relevance. He didn't lose a fight, he didn't even show up for one. He was just standing in a cultural spotlight that suddenly, irrevocably switched off, leaving only the lingering echo of a takedown that was never meant to be won, but sure looked like it when the smoke cleared. The air is thinner now in the late-night landscape, and Kimmel is finding it harder to breathe.